Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Candice if you're new here, and today we are going into part 5 in our Modesty series. We are talking about modesty and social media. Now, of course, when we think about modesty, most of the times what we're thinking about is the way people dress, the way people present themselves, how people talk to other people, whether they're using vulgar language or just, regularly addressing people and stuff like that. But I think it's worth speaking about to try and apply modesty to our social media interactions, because social media is so prevalent these days. I mean, like when I first got on social media, I think I was like a teenager, and back then it was mainly used, just to get in contact with family members that were out of state or people in your school, or just different groups that you were in, like Bible study groups or stuff like that. And it was just mainly a form of communication, but it was mostly with people that you knew. However, it has transformed into posting things, and anybody in the world can see what you're putting out there. And even if we have our settings to private, things still get out one way or another. So I want to take biblical principles and apply them to our social media usage in 3 different areas. We're going to talk about the words that we use online, we're going to talk about pictures that we post online, as well as content, like created content, like for what I'm creating here on YouTube. And we're going to get into each one of those and take Bible verses to talk about how we should be using those things, and how to make those interactions more modest and just more appropriate and more glorifying to God. Now, again, if you're new here, I do videos based on a Christian perspective, so everything that I talk about is going to be connected to the Bible in some way and to God in some way. Let's start with our words on social media. Now, if you think about words just in general, a lot of us have insecurities or parts about ourselves that we don't like, specifically because somebody made a comment somewhere and said something that was demeaning or critical or just inappropriate and unnecessary. And so people have trauma based on other people's words. That old phrase, the sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. It is false. Words, I think, are one of the things that stick with us the longest. If somebody criticized you when you were 15, you might carry that with you until you're 70, if they criticized your weight or your height or your intelligence or whatever it may have been. And it's everybody knows that in terms of face-to-face conversation, but most people don't apply that when they are speaking words through social media or online, typing in words. People don't think of the repercussions of what they're saying as much as they do when they're talking to somebody face-to-face. So if I'm speaking to somebody face-to-face, I am going to be way more conscientious of what I'm saying and how that is affecting the person. It's much easier to lose that perspective when you are speaking to a computer screen or typing on a computer, you know what I mean? For our words, what it says about our words, it talks about words so many times in the Bible. Words can be like a 2-edged sword, brittling your tongue. It talks about, how the tongue is such a small part of our body, and yet it is so hard for people to control it. We're going to pull a couple of verses that I particularly like. We're going to go to Proverbs chapter 31, verse 26 is where we're going to start. Now, if you're familiar with Proverbs 31, it's talking about a virtuous woman, a righteous woman, and it lists a bunch of the qualities she has, a bunch of the things that she does. And in verse 26 it says, "She opens her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness." And when we speak on social media or speak to people in person, we should always be using wisdom, thinking about what we're saying before we say it, as well as kindness. Online, people are so apt to criticize other people or to disagree with them harshly, you know what I mean? Like, not just like a regular, oh, I just disagree with your point, but like being aggressive about it. Personally, I got off of social media, you know, like Facebook and stuff like that, a couple years ago, because I felt that social media had become such a place where a lot of the interactions were negative. There were way too many ads too, let's face that fact. Like, I got sick of scrolling past ads. But a lot of the interactions were so negative. I mean, it was all political stuff or people posting their views on things, but it wasn't people posting their views on things respectfully. It was people posting their views on things in an aggressive way, and then other people attacking those views in an aggressive way instead of just, you know, stating facts and being respectful as human beings. Like, it got out of hand. And so I personally decided that it wasn't helping my mental health at all to be on social media, so I personally got off of it. But I know this day and age, like, it's very hard to not be on social media because so many groups, careers, workplaces, like, all use social media to communicate and to, like, inform you of events that are happening or things that are going on. So I know social media is out there, which is why, and it's something that a lot of people kind of have to use. I know I had to use it for my career for a while. So I wanted to address the ways we should be using it, and just to make it more of a positive, healthy environment. So when we are on social media, if we are using wisdom and kindness in our words to other people, we then not only are, you know, representing ourselves very well, but we're also representing God. You know, like, in all of our actions, we represent not only ourselves, but we also represent God. That involves interactions with other people in person, that involves our interactions with animals, that involves our interactions with your grandparents, with people, random strangers online that you don't know. Now, at least back in, you know, like my grandparents' and great-grandparents' day, how they projected themselves was just on their reputation of how they interacted with people in person. Like, social media wasn't a thing when my grandparents and great-grandparents were around. Like, they just interacted with people, and they knew people based on their reputation from how other people interacted with them. But now we have this gigantic pool of people around the world who are getting to see us and who we are based on what we post online. So, like, our extent of our reach is way larger. Our influence is bigger. It used to be, you know, just the people in your hometown were the people who really knew you. Now you can post everything about your entire life online and tell everybody your story and who you are and what you're all about. So I think we should be very wise with what we post, word-wise, online. Sorry, we can cut it. Kitty napping here, so her paws might pop up into the video a few times. Where was I? But the things we post online, I think they have a farther reach than what we think they do. Like, we think, oh, well, our 100 friends or whatever are gonna see it, or, oh, I only had 10 views on that post. But what we say has a further reach. It's just like if we say something positive to somebody, or you get a really encouraging interaction with somebody where they're encouraging you in what you're good at, encouraging you in what you do, they're complimenting you on how you're living your life, like that positive interaction, you could still be thinking about that and have good emotions about that interaction like years later. And it's the same thing with negative interactions. So our words should be wise, our words should be kind. Let's jump over to James chapter 1, verse 26 and 27. It says, "If any man among you seem to be religious, and bridleth not his tongue, but deceiveth his own heart, this man's religion is vain. Pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted from the world." So if you are a follower of God, if you are a Christian, the way we live our lives, the way we are called to live our lives, by God, is very different and very contradictory, I guess, to the way the world is living their lives this day and age. I mean, all you have to do to realize this is to watch a little bit of television, like shacking up and going from partner to partner and, you know, lying and deceiving and cheating and stealing and doing all these things is like just promoted as normal on shows. It's promoted as okay, like the person still has a good character even though they're doing all these things, and that is not the stuff that we as Christians are called to do. So when we are exposing ourselves to those shows, when we are exposing ourselves to social media in which these things are glorified and, you know, just kind of projected as, oh, this is living life and what life should be, I think we need to take that into account, because we are not, like, our lives are not what we post online. Our lives are what we do with our time and how we help people, and, you know, visiting the fatherless and the widows and stuff like that. And so our words, again, are just a huge part of social media, and we should be aware and just conscientious of what we're posting and what we're saying before we say it. I guess is what I gotta say on that. And being modest also would dictate not just the content of your words, but the amount of them. Like, modesty is, you know, just being a little bit more discreet. Not everyone needs to know every minute or every day of our lives. I mean, when I was on social media, there were people who would post 10, 15 times a day about their lives or their thoughts or what they were thinking, and in this realm, less is more. Less is more modest. Like, I don't need to know that you dropped 5 pounds. I don't need to know, you know, like, whether or not your child is pissing you off today. Like, another part of being modest too is, especially if you have family or friends, like, not posting things about them without their express permission. And I would err on the side of not posting anything about children at all, because they don't have any control over that. You know, like, when I was growing up, okay, baby pictures, you know, especially the embarrassing ones, were kept in a photo album. And that photo album was, like, tucked away, and it only came out, you know, like on holidays or things like that. And it was only with people that you invited over were exposed to these things. Now people are posting, like, inappropriate pictures of their children, or pictures where their children are running around without a shirt on, and, like, all of these kids' embarrassing photos are online for the whole world to see, or, like, words about them, you know, telling stories about how they put their diaper on their head or whatever else. All of these embarrassing stories, you know, that we didn't have to expose with everybody. Now people are putting these things about their children online, and these people later, as they grow up, are then going to have to deal with whatever unintended consequences are coming from that. The better to err on the side of caution. We're going to hop over into pictures, since I was just talking about pictures a second ago. Our pictures that we post online, I mean, I totally get, you know, people wanting to post a picture of their wedding, or post a picture of their child that, you know, was just born, or posting a picture from a birthday or things like that. I just think we need to be, again, aware of what our pictures can imply, how our pictures can come across to other people. Like they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. It's totally true. When I was in school, in college actually, they warned us about our social media accounts. They said, hey, you need to, if you have not already, you need to go through your social media accounts and delete anything that could come across as controversial. Like any pictures in a bikini, any pictures with you drinking alcohol, any pictures that, you know, someone in your career line could end up, or a future employer could end up finding and using as a reason to not hire you, or a reason to get rid of you. Like, they were very adamant about that when I was in school. They were like, just be aware and don't post things that other people don't need to see, or that can look unprofessional. Because when you go for a job these days, they look you up. I mean, they do background checks. They try and find you on social media. And they use your social media account to base their decision of whether or not they are going to hire you. I mean, you could have the best resume in the world, but if you're posting pictures that are completely immodest, or pictures with a lot of guns, a lot of drinking, a lot of violence, or, questionable decisions, questionable outfits, you might not get that job. Sorry, my voice is going out there for a second. With our pictures too, I think just, again, the less is more in the modesty thing. Like, we don't need 1,000 pictures of people's coffees, or, pictures of you in bed snuggling next to your significant other or your husband. Like, there are some things I think that are better if we experience them ourselves without sharing them. I mean, things are more special. Like, an outing with your husband is going to be way more special and meaningful to you if you're out there having that outing and just enjoying his presence, as opposed to being concerned about getting that perfect picture with the perfect lighting to post online so you can compare your life to everybody else's. Like, there are things that should be kept to ourselves just because they're more special that way. They're more meaningful when they're not exposed to the world. They're more meaningful when they are kept as special treasures just for ourselves that nobody else maybe even knows about because we're just keeping it to ourselves. Those, I think, are kind of the best memories. I mean, for me personally, since I've been off of social media for like 2 years, I don't really take that many pictures. And I find it so jarring now, like if I go out with friends and they all of a sudden want to take out their camera and find a perfect spot to take the perfect picture with the perfect lighting so they can post it online, and like they're spending so much time with their phone instead of spending that time with me. Like, it just seems so weird. Like, if you've gone without it for a while and all of a sudden people are doing this on your outings, it's so strange, like how much time is spent to get that perfect picture to show it off online, where I find the interactions that I have with friends where phones are not involved are way more meaningful. We have way deeper conversations and just have a better time overall, because that time is not meant to be compared to anybody else. That time is not meant to be shared with anybody else. That time is just meant to be between me and my friends. You know what I mean? Alright. And I think a lot of the reason we post so many pictures online is because somehow our self-worth is tied up in how many likes we get. And like, let's face it, when you get all those likes or comments or whatever it is, it gives you dopamine in your brain, okay? And that dopamine becomes like a high almost. And the more you get, the higher you feel. So you want to post more pictures because the more likes makes you feel better. And it can get to the point where it's kind of toxic and your self-worth is tied up in this. God says that we should be seeking Him first. We should be seeking Him, His kingdom, His glory. And I think social media has become a tool used by Satan himself to get people more focused on themselves and more focused on comparing themselves with other people instead of focusing on God or focusing on what God says about us. I don't care if this video gets 1,000 likes or it gets 0. Like, my self-worth is not tied up in what you think of me. My self-worth is not tied up in how many comments I get. My self-worth is tied up in God. My self-worth is a direct expression of how God thinks of me and how God feels of me. And I think that's something that we just need to be aware of, especially when it comes to our social media usage. Like, why we're posting it, why we're putting it there. The modest thing to do would be to only post pictures, from like big events. Like, if you have a wedding, yes, throw a picture of yourself up there with your groom, or you're attending the wedding, post a happy picture to celebrate the event. I get it, posting a picture of a birthday party or something like that. Beautiful, posting a picture of a nature walk that you just went on, that's cool too. I just think it should be more minimal, and the pictures should be more meaningful. You know what I mean? Just to make them have more value, I guess, in a way. We're gonna hop on over to the content we post. Now, words, pictures, of course, are a part of the content we post, but I think the quality of the things we put out there and what we put out there should reflect who we are, should reflect our values. If you are a Christian, it should reflect God very well. So when I decided to start posting this content here for you guys, I wanted to make sure that my content was fully approved by God, because I don't want to blaspheme God. I don't want to seem like a hypocrite. Okay, I don't want to project Christianity as something that's not good. I wanted to make sure that it is something that is projected through me in a good way. And if you go to Titus chapter 2, what is this, verse 4 and 5, it's talking about women here. It says that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their own husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their own husbands, that the word of God be not blasphemed. And what I'm specifically talking about with reference to this video is the words discreet and chaste. If you look up the word chaste in the actual Bible dictionary, when it talks about the words, chaste is a word for, of course, pure, innocent, but is also a word for modesty, for being modest. And so it says for us to be discreet and to teach other women, younger women, to be discreet and to be modest. And now, of course, in this day and age, that will apply to social media. And so that's what I'm doing with my content. I'm taking my content and making sure that it is something that is a blessing to other people. I try to make sure that my content does not blaspheme God. I try to make sure that my content is reflective of who I am as a person. And a lot of people, when they post content, their main consideration, I think, is how many views will this get? How many likes will this get? And I would challenge you to reframe that and to be with your content, be like, okay, how will this glorify God? How will this project a good image for Christianity? How will this, lead people closer in their relationship with God? That is what I would suggest for content. But again, if you're not a Christian, that's probably not going to be your concern, but you can still apply modesty to your content by you can apply modesty to your content just by making sure it's wholesome. I mean, come on, we don't want to put content out there that's, vulgar, that's, aggressive, that's violent. I mean, our content should be stuff that people can watch, and it's not going to harm them or their family in any way. It's not going to, make them super angsty, super full of anxiety and stuff like that. Our content should always be peaceful. It should always be, there's a verse that's talking about telling the truth. And I feel like there's a lot of Christians out there who are trying to tell the truth through their content on social media, but sometimes that truth is told in an aggressive way or in a condemning way, in a judging way, and our truth should always be spoken in love. Our truth, like God's truth, should be spoken in love. And love is not violent. Love is not bashing someone. Love is not criticizing them for this, and that. Love is love. You know what love is when you're expressing it. You know what love is when you are consuming content that was made in love and not, in hatred or obsession or all those other crazy things. So I would say that our content, again, should reflect what's in the Bible. It should reflect our views. It should reflect the values that we have, that we want to put out into the world. And so that is how I would say to put modesty in the context of social media. Again, if you have any other comments or any ideas on any other ways or any other things that you would apply modesty to, you can go ahead and leave them down below, and I will try and reply to all the ones that I can. I will see you guys next time.